You know that kind of Sunday you wish you could just erase from your memory? Yeah, I had one of those. It was just another Sunday lunch at my parents' house in Boston. The Whitman estate, as my mother loved to call it, with its white columns and perfectly manicured gardens that looked like something out of Architectural Digest. Everything always perfect. Everything always in its proper place. Except me. It was 11:30 in the morning when I pulled up in my old Honda Civic. I could see the curtain in the living room move, my mother, obviously, checking if I'd arrived on time. I took a deep breath before turning off the engine. "You've got this, Emily. It's just another lunch," I whispered to myself. But as I walked up the stone pathway, I heard voices. Multiple voices. My stomach dropped. Oh no! This wasn't just a family lunch. The door opened before I could even ring the bell. There she was, Margaret Whitman, blonde hair perfectly styled, beige social dress, pearl necklace. Always the pearls. "Emily, how nice that you managed to arrive on time, at least today." Her tone was ice-cold, cutting. No hug. No smile. "Everyone's already here. You're the last one, as usual." "Everyone. Hi, Mom. You look beautiful." I didn't know other people were coming." She looked me up and down, her critical blue eyes scanning my simple cotton dress, my worn flats. I saw the corner of her mouth twist in disapproval. "Well, it's Sunday. The family always gathers on Sundays. You'd know that if you came more often." She stepped aside. "Your father is in the living room with your Uncle Richard and Aunt Patricia. Your cousins Amanda and Thomas are here too, along with the Harrisons from the country club." My heart sank. The Harrisons. My mother's snobbiest friends. The house smelled of roasted lamb and rosemary. But as I walked into the living room, all I could smell was my own anxiety. "Emily! There she is!" Uncle Richard boomed, martini in hand. He was my father's younger brother, always loud, always comparing everything. "Hi, Uncle Richard. Hi, everyone." The room fell silent for a second. All eyes on me. Amanda, my cousin, looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine in her designer dress. Thomas wore a perfectly tailored suit. Even the Harrisons looked like old money personified. And there I was, in my Target dress and CVS lipstick. "Emily, darling." Mrs. Harrison air-kissed near my cheeks. "We haven't seen you in ages. What have you been up to?" Before I could answer, my mother interjected from behind me. "Oh, Emily's been very busy with her projects." The way she said projects made it sound like I was finger painting in kindergarten. "Projects?" Mr. Harrison adjusted his glasses. "What field are you in, young lady?" "I'm a freelance graphic designer. I run my own." "She does logos and things," my mother interrupted, her voice dripping with barely concealed embarrassment. "You know, on the computer. For small businesses." The room's energy shifted. I could feel the judgment seeping through the walls. "Oh," Mrs. Harrison said, her smile frozen. "How modern." "Let's sit for lunch, shall we?" my mother announced, leading everyone to the dining room. The table was set for 10 people with the expensive china, crystal glasses gleaming under the chandelier. Each detail screamed wealth, tradition, status, and I felt like a stain on a white canvas. As we sat down, I ended up between Aunt Patricia and Thomas. Directly across from me sat Amanda, who couldn't hide her smug smile. "So, Emily," Aunt Patricia began as the first course was served, "your mother tells us you're still renting?" My face burned. "Yes, I have an apartment in Cambridge." "Cambridge? How lovely," she said in a tone that made it clear she thought it was anything but. "And you're 32 now, correct?" "I just turned 32, yes." "Isn't that something?" She exchanged a glance with my mother. "At 32, Amanda here just bought her third property. An investment condo in Miami. Tell Emily about it, dear. Amanda leaned forward, her diamond bracelet catching the light. Oh, it's nothing really. Just a little two-bedroom near South Beach. The market there is incredible right now. Her third property, Aunt Patricia repeated, making sure I got it. That's great, Amanda, I managed. And Thomas, Uncle Richard jumped in, just made partner at his law firm. Youngest partner in the firm's history. 34 years old. Can you believe it? Thomas had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable, but he still smiled. Yeah, it's been a good year. Meanwhile, my mother's voice cut through like a knife. Emily is still figuring things out. The table went quiet. Everyone looked at me. Mom, I'm not figuring things out. I have a career. I'm building my own business. A business. My mother actually laughed. A short, sharp sound. Sweetie, having a laptop and doing odd jobs isn't a business. It's surviving. I felt like I'd been slapped. Margaret, my father said softly from the head of the table, but she was on a roll now. No, Robert. Emily needs to hear this. She's 32 years old, living paycheck to paycheck, no health insurance, no retirement plan, no stability whatsoever. And she's calling it a career. She turned to Mrs. Harrison. You can imagine how worried we are. Mrs. Harrison nodded sympathetically. It must be difficult. Young people today have such unconventional ideas about success. Exactly. My mother seized on this. We gave Emily every opportunity. The best schools, the best education, connections that most people would kill for. And what does she do? Throws it all away to design Instagram posts for startups that probably won't even exist next year. That's not fair, I started. Fair. My mother's voice rose. You want to talk about fair? Your father and I paid for 4 years at Boston University. $150,000 in tuition. And what do you have to show for it? The number hung in the air like an accusation. I could feel everyone's eyes on me. I use my degree every day in my work, I said quietly, my hands shaking under the table. Oh, please, Amanda muttered just loud enough for everyone to hear. I hate to say it, but Aunt Margaret has a point. I mean, Emily, you're still driving that same car from college. When was the last time you took a real vacation? Or bought something nice for yourself? Amanda, my father said more firmly, but the damage was done. I'm just saying, Amanda continued, emboldened, at some point, you have to grow up and join the real world. Get a real job with benefits, a 401k, health insurance. You know, adult things. I have health insurance, I said weakly. The marketplace plan that costs you how much a month? My mother arched an eyebrow. With that ridiculous deductible? That's not real coverage, Emily. She could always come work for my firm, Thomas offered, though his tone made it clear he was just being polite. We're always looking for administrative support. Administrative support. He meant secretary. That's actually not a bad idea, Uncle Richard chimed in. Steady income, benefits, room for growth. I don't want to be a secretary, I said, my voice cracking slightly. I want to do what I'm doing. And what exactly are you doing? My mother leaned forward. Help me understand, Emily. Because from where I'm sitting, you're 32, broke, alone, living in a tiny apartment, working yourself to death for pennies. Tell me, what's the grand plan here? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? 10 years? Still scraping by, still pretending you're some kind of entrepreneur. Tears burned behind my eyes. Every word was a dagger, made worse by the audience of family and friends watching this public execution of my life choices. You know what your problem is? My mother wasn't done. She took a sip of wine, her voice sharp. You think you're special. You think you're different. You think the rules that apply to everyone else don't apply to you. But let me tell you something, Emily. Life doesn't care about your little artistic dreams. Life requires responsibility, maturity, things you clearly still haven't learned. That's enough, Margaret. My father finally stood up, his face red. But my mother held up her hand. No, Robert. She needs to hear this. We've coddled her for too long, supported her delusions. Maybe if someone had been honest with her years ago, she wouldn't be in this pathetic situation now. Pathetic. The word echoed in my mind. I could feel the tears threatening to spill over. Around the table, no one met my eyes. Aunt Patricia looked uncomfortable. Mr. Harrison studied his wine glass. Amanda was trying not to smile. This was it. My lowest moment. Publicly humiliated by my own mother, in front of family and friends, every insecurity I'd ever had laid bare for everyone to judge. I was about to excuse myself, to run to the bathroom and cry in private, when I heard it. The doorbell. Who could that be? My mother frowned, annoyed at the interruption of her speech. We could hear our housekeeper, Maria, answering the door. Hushed voices in the foyer. Footsteps approaching. The tension in the room was suffocating. I stared at my plate, trying to breathe, trying not to cry in front of everyone. Margaret, maybe we should. My father started. Should what, Robert? Stop telling our daughter the truth? Stop caring about her future. You're not caring about her future. My father's voice was harder than I'd ever heard it. You're humiliating her. I'm giving her a reality check. You're being cruel. Their argument was cut short as Maria appeared in the doorway, looking flustered. Mrs. Whitman, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here who says it's urgent. Mr. Harris, the family attorney. My mother's face went pale. Charles? Here. On a Sunday. He says he needs to speak with the entire family. Especially Miss Emily. Every head in the room turned toward me. Me. Why would the family lawyer need to speak to me? My heart started racing for an entirely different reason now. Had something happened? Was there some legal issue I didn't know about? Had I accidentally broken some law? Oh God, what if I'd missed paying some important tax or fee and now I was in trouble? The humiliation from moments before was instantly replaced by pure panic. Mr. Charles Harris walked into the dining room with the gravitas of a man carrying important news. He was in his 60s, silver-haired, impeccably dressed in a three-piece suit despite it being Sunday. His leather briefcase was under his arm, and his expression was serious. I apologize for the intrusion, he said, nodding at the table. I wouldn't have come if it wasn't time-sensitive. Time-sensitive. My father stood up. Charles, what's going on? Perhaps we should speak privately, Mr. Harris began. No, my mother interrupted. Whatever this is about, we have no secrets from our family and friends here. I wanted to point out the irony of that statement after what she'd just done to me, but I kept quiet. Mr. Harris hesitated, then nodded. Very well. As you know, I've been the executor of Edward Whitman's estate since his passing 5 years ago. Grandpa Edward. My paternal grandfather. The patriarch of the family, the man who had built the Whitman financial empire from nothing. Yes, and? My mother asked impatiently. There was a clause in his will, Mr. Harris continued, his eyes finding mine across the room, that I was instructed to keep confidential until certain conditions were met. What kind of clause? Uncle Richard leaned forward, suddenly very interested. A clause pertaining to Emily. You could have heard a pin drop. What? I whispered. Mr. Harris opened his briefcase and pulled out a stack of documents. Emily, Your grandfather established a substantial trust fund in your name. It was to remain secret until you turned 32 and demonstrated, and I quote from his will, genuine independence, supporting herself without family wealth, pursuing her own passions rather than others' expectations, and maintaining her integrity in the face of external pressure. My jaw dropped. What are you talking about? My mother's voice was shrill. I'm talking about the fact that Emily turned 32 last month, Mr. Harris said, a small smile forming on his lips. And my firm has been discreetly monitoring, as instructed by Mr. Edward. She has supported herself entirely without family financial assistance. She has built her own business from the ground up. She has lived within her means, refused help even when it was difficult, and most importantly, she has stayed true to herself despite considerable pressure to do otherwise. He looked pointedly at my mother. Therefore, Mr. Harris placed a thick envelope on the table in front of me. Effective immediately, Emily Whitman has inherited the sum of $8,500,000, as well as the property in Martha's Vineyard, and a significant stake in Whitman Enterprises. The world stopped spinning. Amanda gasped. Thomas's mouth fell open. Uncle Richard made a choking sound. Mrs. Harrison's wine glass stopped halfway to her lips. And my mother looked like she'd been struck by lightning. 8 million. Someone whispered. I think it was Aunt Patricia. That can't be right, my mother said, her voice shaking. There must be some mistake. No mistake, Mrs. Whitman. The trust has been managed conservatively over the past 5 years and has grown substantially. All documentation is here. He gestured to the envelope. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't process what I was hearing. $8.5 million. But why? My voice came out as barely a whisper. Why would Grandpa do this? Mr. Harris's expression softened. He left a letter for you. He wanted you to read it when this moment came. He handed me another envelope, this one smaller, with my name written in my grandfather's shaky handwriting. With trembling hands, I opened it. My vision was blurred with tears as I read, My dearest Emily, if you're reading this, it means you did it. You did what few people have the courage to do. You lived authentically, without bending to pressure or expectations from others. I built an empire, but in the process, I lost so much. Your grandmother always said I worked too much, that I didn't watch my children grow up. She was right. I wanted my children to be successful, but I ended up only teaching them about money and status, not about passion and purpose. When I watched you drawing in the garden, your eyes lighting up when you created something, I saw the artist I abandoned to build businesses. I saw the courage I never had. This inheritance isn't just money, Emily. It's my recognition that you've always been richer than any of us. Rich in courage, rich in authenticity, rich in love for what you do. Use this money not to change who you are, but to amplify what you've already built. And never let anyone make you feel inferior for choosing happiness over appearances. I know your mother has been hard on you. Don't judge her too harshly. She's a product of her own upbringing, her own fears. Maybe in time, she'll learn what you already know, that the bravest thing we can do is be ourselves. With all my love and pride, Grandpa Edward, I was sobbing now. Full, body-shaking sobs. Those words, this man had understood me in a way my own parents never had. Emily. My father's voice was thick with emotion, but it was the silence from my mother that spoke the loudest. When I finally looked up, she was white as a sheet, staring at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Shock, shame, anger. Around the table, everyone else looked equally stunned. Amanda's smug smile had vanished. Thomas was pale. The Harrisons looked like they wanted to disappear. $8.5 million, Uncle Richard finally said, his voice filled with something that sounded like envy. And Martha's Vineyard? That property alone is worth millions. Mr. Harris nodded. Indeed. Mr. Edward was very specific. He wanted Emily to have true financial independence, the ability to never have to compromise her values for money. I looked at my mother, really looked at her, and for the first time in my life, I saw her not as the critic, not as the disappointed parent, but as a woman who had just realized she'd been completely, devastatingly wrong. The words came out of my mouth before I even realized I was speaking. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the hardwood floor. Emily, my father started. I'm sorry, I need to go. I grabbed the envelopes from the table, clutching them to my chest like a life raft, and walked out. Nobody tried to stop me. Mr. Harris nodded understandingly. I made it to my car before the full weight of everything crashed down on me. $8.5 million. I sat in my old Honda, the car my mother had just mocked in front of everyone, and I couldn't stop shaking. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. But it was. The letter was real. The tremor in Grandpa Edward's handwriting was real. His words were real. And so was the look on my mother's face when she realized I wasn't the failure she'd spent the last hour convincing everyone I was. I drove home in a daze. My tiny apartment in Cambridge suddenly felt different. Was it still my home? Would I leave it now? Buy something bigger, better? The thought made me feel sick. For the next week, I barely left my apartment. I called in sick to my freelance projects. I ignored calls from my parents, from my cousins, from people I hadn't heard from in years who somehow got my number. I sat on my floor, surrounded by the bank statements Mr. Harris had given me, barely able to comprehend the numbers. $8,473,522. It was surreal. But more than that, it was terrifying. What if this money changed me? What if I became like them? What if I started measuring my worth in dollars instead of passion? What if I lost the very thing Grandpa had been proud of? What if my mother was right all along, and I was just a fool who got lucky? The doubt crept in like poison. Despite everything, despite the validation, despite the vindication, I questioned myself. Had I really earned this? Or had I just been stubborn? Was there a difference? And the scariest question of all, who was I now? For 10 years, I defined myself as the underdog, the one fighting against expectations, the one proving that success doesn't have to look like everyone expects. But now, with millions in the bank, was I still that person? Or was I something else entirely? My phone buzzed. A text from my dad. Emily, your mother is upset, but at the bottom of it all, I think she's scared. Scared that you'll leave us behind. Forgive me for not defending you more over the years. You've always been stronger than me. Can we talk? Tears blurred my vision. My dad, he rarely expressed emotions like this. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. Not while I was still figuring out who I was in this new reality. I called my best friend, Sophia. She was at my door in 20 minutes with wine and chocolate. Okay, so let me get this straight, she said, sitting on my futon couch. You just inherited $8 million, and instead of being on a beach in the Bahamas, you're here crying. I don't know what to do, Soph. This changes everything. It doesn't have to change anything, Em. You're still you. But what if I become like them? What if the money transforms me into my mother? Sophia looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Emily Rose Whitman, you've spent the last 10 years busting your ass, living on ramen, turning down every cent your parents offered. You have more integrity in your pinky finger than your mother has in her whole body. But she was right about one thing, I whispered. I was struggling. It was hard. Some months I could barely make rent. And you did it. Without help. That's what matters. We spent the whole night talking, planning, dreaming, and slowly, through the tears and the wine, an idea began to form. I wouldn't let this money change me. I would use it to amplify who I already was. The next morning, I woke up with crystal clarity. I opened my laptop and started making real plans. First, pay off my small debts. Nothing grand, but liberating. Second, keep my apartment. Yes, I could buy a mansion, but this space was mine. Maybe renovate it, but not move. Third, invest in my business. Hire other freelance designers. Create a small agency focused on helping startups and small businesses. Something with purpose. Fourth, and this was the important one, create a foundation to support young artists and designers from families who didn't support them. In memory of Grandpa Edward. But there was something else I needed to do. Something that scared me and excited me at the same time. I needed to face my mother. Not with anger, but with truth. And I knew exactly how to do it. The calls started the next day. First, my mother. Then my father. Then Amanda. Then Thomas. Even Uncle Richard, who I'd barely spoken to in years. Everyone suddenly wanted to check in on me. I let them go to voicemail. But there was one message that made me pause. From my mother, her voice trembling. Emily, I need to talk to you. Please. I know I said terrible things. I know I hurt you. But please, call me back. She sounded broken. Different. Not the confident, critical Margaret Whitman I knew. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. Instead, I met with Mr. Harris at his office. We went through all the paperwork, signed all the documents. It was real. All of it was real. Your grandfather was a wise man, Mr. Harris said as we finished. He knew exactly what he was doing. He saw something in you that others couldn't see. Did he know how my mother treated me? Mr. Harris hesitated. He knew. And it broke his heart. But he also believed that you were strong enough to withstand it, that it would make you even more determined to stay true to yourself. Was he right? Well, Mr. Harris smiled. You're sitting here, aren't you? Still Emily. Still authentic. Still doing what you love. I'd say he was absolutely right. That evening, Sophia came over again. So what's the plan? She asked. I want to invite them to lunch. My parents. And Mr. Harris. At their house. No, I said firmly. My territory. Well, neutral territory. I'm going to rent a private room at a nice restaurant. Not too fancy, not trying to show off. Just comfortable. And you're going to tell them what? I took a deep breath. The truth. All of it. How they made me feel. How much they hurt me. But also, how much Grandpa Edward believed in me. And how I'm going to use this money. You're going to create the foundation? Yes. And the agency. And I'm going to make sure my mother knows that this money didn't change who I am. It validated who I've always been. Sophia hugged me. You're stronger than you think, you know. I hope so. Because this is going to be hard. But it was time. Time to face them. Time to tell my truth. Time to show them that Emily Whitman wasn't the failure they thought she was. Not just planning what to say, but figuring out who I wanted to be moving forward. The money was one thing. But my response to it, my choices with it, that would define everything. I made lists. I researched nonprofits. I talked to other freelancers about expanding my business. I consulted with financial advisors about investments and foundations. And I wrote, page after page of feelings I'd buried for years. Sophia helped me practice my speech. Don't be mean, she advised. Be honest, but not cruel. You're not trying to hurt them back. You're trying to heal. She was right. Revenge wouldn't feel good. Truth would. I sent the invitation via text to my parents. Mom and Dad, I'd like to invite you to lunch this Sunday. Just the three of us, plus Mr. Harris. I've reserved a private room at Harvest in Cambridge. 1 p.m. I have things I need to say, and I hope you'll listen. Emily, my mother's response came within minutes. We'll be there. Thank you for reaching out. Mom, no justifications. No arguments. Just acceptance. Sunday arrived. I woke up early, anxiety and determination battling in my chest. I chose my outfit carefully, not the Target dress from last week, but not designer either. A simple but nice dress I'd bought for client meetings. Me, but polished. I arrived at the restaurant first. The private room was perfect. Warm lighting, comfortable chairs, a window overlooking the street. Intimate without being intimidating. When my parents walked in, I barely recognized my mother. She looked smaller somehow. Her usual confidence was gone, replaced by something I'd never seen before, vulnerability. Emily, she said softly. Mom, Dad, thanks for coming. We sat down in awkward silence until Mr. Harris arrived, breaking the tension. Well, he said, sitting down and glancing at the menu, shall we order first? Or would you like to talk first, Emily? Let's order, I said. I want to do this on a full stomach. That got a small laugh from my father. The tension eased slightly. We made small talk while we ate. The weather. A new museum exhibit. Anything but the elephant in the room. Finally, over coffee, I cleared my throat. Thank you for coming, I began, my hands wrapped around my cup. I know last Sunday was intense. For all of us. My mother looked down at her hands. Emily, I need to apologize. Please, let me finish. My voice was gentle but firm. I need to say this. She nodded. For most of my life, you made me feel like I wasn't enough. Like my choices were wrong. Like I was a disappointment. My voice cracked, but I continued. And for a long time I believed it. I looked in the mirror and saw a failure. Saw someone who had let everyone down. Emily. My father's eyes were glistening. But Grandpa Edward, he saw something different. He saw that I was living courageously. That I was being true to myself, even when it was hard. Even when it hurt. Tears started falling, but I didn't stop. The money he left isn't just money. It's validation. It's proof that I wasn't wrong. That living authentically is worth more than living to impress others. I slid a folder across the table. Mr. Harris had helped me prepare it. This is the Edward Whitman Foundation for Independent Artists. It will offer grants and mentorship to young creatives who need support to follow their passions, especially those from families who don't understand or support their dreams. My father picked up the papers, tears flowing freely now as he read. And this, I continued, sliding another folder, is my business expansion plan. I'm investing $2 million into growing my agency. Not to compete with big firms, but to create something with purpose. An agency that helps small businesses and social causes find their visual voice. You planned all this in a week? My mother's voice was barely a whisper. No, Mom. I've been planning this for years. I just didn't have the resources to execute it. The silence that followed was different. Not tense. Thoughtful. What about you? My mother asked, and there was something genuine in her voice. Are you going to buy mansions, expensive cars? I smiled, half laughing, half crying. I'm going to renovate my apartment. Maybe buy a car that doesn't make weird noises. But no, I'm not going to fundamentally change who I am. Because, Mom. I took a deep breath. I like who I am. And it took me a long time to get here. That's when it happened. Something I never expected to see. My mother cried. Not delicate, controlled tears. Real, deep sobs. The sound of my mother crying was something I'd never heard before. Margaret Whitman didn't cry. She got angry, she got cold, she got critical. But she didn't break down. She struggled to speak through her tears. I've been so horrible to you. And it wasn't even about you. It was about me. About how I've spent my entire life trying to prove my worth to everyone. And watching you choose a different path, it terrified me. Because it meant there might be another way to live that I never had the courage to try. My heart clenched. Mom! No, let me say this. She wiped her eyes, smudging her perfect makeup. When I was your age, I was so focused on being the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the perfect society woman. I built my entire identity around what others thought of me. And when you refused to do the same, when you chose your own path, I saw it as rejection. Rejection of everything I was. But it wasn't about you, I said softly. I know that now. She looked at me with red, swollen eyes. And I'm so sorry, Emily. I'm sorry for every cruel word, every dismissive comment, every time I made you feel small. You were never the failure. I was. I failed to see the incredible woman you were becoming. I'd imagined this moment so many times. Sometimes I imagined screaming at her, telling her off, making her feel as small as she'd made me feel. But now, sitting here, watching her finally be honest, I just felt sad. Sad for all the years we'd lost to misunderstanding. I don't need you to be perfect, Mom, I said. I just need you to see me. Really see me. Not the daughter you wanted me to be, but the person I actually am. I see you now, she whispered. And I'm so proud. Not of the money, not of the inheritance, but of your strength, of your integrity, of the fact that you stayed true to yourself when it would have been so much easier to give up. My father reached across the table and took both our hands. I'm proud too, Emily, and I'm ashamed that I didn't stand up for you more. I let your mother's fears drive the conversation for too long. I should have protected you. Dad, you don't have to. Yes, I do. His voice was firm. You deserved better from both of us. And I promise, moving forward, things will be different. Mr. Harris, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke. If I may, Edward predicted this conversation would be difficult. He wanted me to share something else. He pulled out another document. Margaret, your father-in-law left you a letter too. He asked me to give it to you after Emily received hers. My mother's hands shook as she took the envelope. He wrote me a letter? Read it, Mr. Harris encouraged. With trembling fingers, she opened it and began to read silently. I watched her face transform. Shock, pain, understanding, and finally, release. When she finished, she folded the letter carefully and looked at me with a completely different expression. What did it say? I asked gently. He said. She took a shaky breath. He said that he loved me, but that he worried I'd become trapped in the same cage he'd built for himself. A cage made of expectations and appearances. He said he hoped that one day I'd learn to be as brave as his granddaughter. As brave as you. Fresh tears fell down both our faces. He also said, she continued, that it's never too late to start living authentically, that he wished he'd learned that lesson sooner. And he asked me to try. To really try. The weight of decades seemed to lift from the room. I want to try, Emily, my mother said, her voice steadier now. I want to be the mother you deserved all along. I know I can't erase the past, but maybe we can start building something new. I reached across the table and took her hand. I'd like that. We sat there, hands connected, 3 generations of pain and misunderstanding finally beginning to heal. So, my father said, trying to lighten the mood while wiping his own tears, tell us about this foundation. How can we help? And for the first time in my life, we had a real conversation. No judgment, no criticism, just genuine interest in my dreams and plans. My mother asked thoughtful questions about the foundation. My father wanted to know about the business expansion. They listened. Really listened. You know, my mother said as we were finishing our coffee, your grandfather used to tell me I had talent as a painter. Back when I was young, before I decided that art was impractical. I stopped creating anything when I got married. Thought it was frivolous. It's never too late to start again, I said. She smiled, a real warm smile I hadn't seen in years. Maybe you're right. The following weeks weren't easy. Change never is. My mother tried, but old habits die hard. There were still moments when she'd slip back into criticism, when her instinct was to judge rather than support. But the difference now was that she caught herself. She apologized. She tried again. One afternoon, she called me. Emily, I did something today. What's that? I signed up for painting classes. At the community center. They start next week. I felt tears spring to my eyes. Mom, that's amazing. I'm terrified, she admitted. I'm probably terrible. I haven't painted in 35 years. You're learning to do something just because you love it, I said. That's not terrible. That's brave. I could hear her smile through the phone. Maybe I'm learning from my daughter. My relationship with my father deepened too. We started having breakfast together on Saturdays. Just the two of us. He told me about his life, his regrets, his dreams that got buried under responsibility and expectations. I wanted to be a teacher, he confessed one morning. History. I loved history. But my father said Whitmans don't teach, they lead companies. It's not too late, I said. You could volunteer. Lead seminars. There are ways. He looked thoughtful. Maybe you're right. But not everything was smooth. There were still difficult conversations. Still moments of tension. One Sunday dinner, we'd started having smaller, more intimate dinners instead of the big production lunches. My mother made a comment about my apartment. So you're really not going to move? Even with all that money? The old defensive Emily would have snapped. But I was learning to. No, Mom. I love my apartment. It's home. But it's so small. You could have something so much nicer. It's enough for me. And that's what matters. She opened her mouth to argue, then stopped herself. I could see the internal battle on her face. Finally, she nodded. You're right. If you're happy there, that's what matters. It was a small victory, but it felt huge. The truth is, we were all learning. Learning to communicate differently. Learning to respect boundaries. Learning that love doesn't mean control. There were setbacks. There were arguments. There were days when I wondered if we'd ever truly understand each other. But there was also progress. There was also healing. And maybe that was enough. Amanda and Thomas reached out too. Their messages were awkward, clearly uncomfortable. Hey, sorry about the lunch thing. We were kind of jerks, Thomas texted. Amanda sent a longer email. I've been thinking about what happened, and I realized I was probably jealous. You always had the courage to do what you wanted, and I just followed the expected path. Congratulations on everything. I appreciated their honesty. We weren't close, probably never would be, but at least there was acknowledgement. Uncle Richard sent a formal letter congratulating me on the inheritance and offering investment advice. It was stiff and formal, but it was something. The hardest part was learning to accept that not everything would be perfect. That my mother would still sometimes say hurtful things. That old wounds would occasionally ache. But the difference now was hope. Hope that we could be better. Hope that we could grow. And for me, that was enough to keep trying. 3 months later, I stood in the office of my new agency. Nothing extravagant, a renovated co-working space with natural light, plants in the windows, and a small but passionate team of 5 designers. My phone rang. It was my mother. Over the past 3 months, we'd talked more than we had in the past 3 years. Real conversations. Sometimes tense. Often difficult. But always honest. "Hi, Mom." "Emily. Darling. Are you busy?" "Always, but never too busy for you." "What's up?" She hesitated, which was rare for Margaret Whitman. "I wanted to tell you that I painted something. My first piece." I dropped my pen. "What?" "I painted something," she repeated, and I could hear a nervous smile in her voice. "It's probably terrible. I haven't painted since college. But it felt good. Really good." Tears stung my eyes. "Mom, that's incredible." "Your grandfather used to tell me I had talent. Before I decided that art was impractical and stopped creating, I thought maybe it's not too late to try again." "It's never too late," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I'm learning what you learned years ago," she admitted. "That creating something without judgment, without expectations, it's freeing." "I'm so proud of you." "I should be saying that to you." "And I am. Every day, Emily. I'm proud of you every day." When we hung up, I sat at my desk and cried. Happy tears. Healing tears. That evening, there was an event. The official launch of the Edward Whitman Foundation for Independent Artists. A small gathering, nothing too fancy. Just meaningful. My parents were there. Sophia was there. Mr. Harris. And 5 young artists who would be receiving the first grants. When it was my turn to speak, I looked out at all the faces. My grandfather believed that true success isn't measured in bank accounts or impressive titles, I began. It's measured in courage. The courage to be who you are, even when the world tells you to be someone else. I looked at my mother. She was crying, but smiling. This foundation isn't just about giving money. It's about giving permission. Permission to dream. Permission to fail. Permission to try again. Because that's what Grandpa gave me. And now, we're going to pay it forward. The applause filled the room, but the moment etched in my memory came later. After the event, my mother approached me. And for the first time in my life, she said, "I'm proud of you, Emily. Not because of the money. Not because of the success. But because you stayed true to yourself when it would have been so much easier to give up. You're stronger than I ever was." We hugged. A real, tight, years of pain finally beginning to heal kind of hug. "I love you, Mom." "I love you too, sweetheart. And I'm sorry. For everything." "I know. And I forgive you." Not everything was perfect. Probably never would be. There were still tense moments. Still old habits resurging. But there was something new too, respect. Understanding. And the promise. To keep trying. And that was something worth more than any inheritance. Today, a year after that fateful Sunday lunch, I look at my life and barely recognize it. Not because of the money. The money is there, safely invested, doing the good Grandpa hoped it would. But what really changed was freedom. Not financial freedom, though that helps. Freedom to be myself without apologizing. My agency is growing. 12 employees now, all passionate about what they do. We work with nonprofits, small businesses with real stories to tell, causes that matter. The foundation has helped 23 young artists so far. 3 have already sold their first pieces. 1 is exhibiting in a gallery in New York. My apartment, still the same. Okay, renovated. New windows, remodeled kitchen. But it's still my refuge, my creative space. And my family. My mother and I have lunch together once a month. Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes it's hard. But it's always honest. She's shown me her paintings. They're beautiful. Raw. Real. My father and I walk together on Saturdays. He tells me about his life, his regrets, his unlived dreams. We're building something we never had, a real connection. If someone had asked me a year ago if $8 million would change my life, I would have said yes. Absolutely. But the truth is more complex. The money didn't change who I am. It validated who I've always been. It gave me a bigger platform, greater resources, wider reach. But the courage, the authenticity, the commitment to live according to my values, I already had that. And that, I discovered, is the real inheritance my grandfather left me. Not the millions, but the reminder that living authentically is the highest form of wealth, and that it's never, ever too late to start. The other day, my mother sent me a photo. It was her latest painting, a landscape of Martha's Vineyard, the property I now own. The text underneath said, "Maybe we could paint there together sometime?" I replied, "I'd love that, Mom." And I meant it. We're not perfect. We probably never will be. But we're real. We're honest. We're trying. And sometimes, that's the best kind of happy ending. So, have you experienced something similar? Have you ever felt like you needed to prove your worth to your family or to the world? Drop your story in the comments below. I love reading them. And if you enjoyed this story, if it touched your heart in any way, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Every week I bring you real, inspiring stories of people who chose to live authentically, even when it was hard. Because at the end of the day, we all deserve to live lives that are true to who we really are. Until the next story. And remember, you are enough, exactly as you are.